On Personality Database, you'll see that America is a type 3 achiever, performer personality, a 3-wing too, actually. But when I think about how America really prizes the individual and the freedom for any individual to be themselves and to make it out on their own, I think about how America could have really heavy 4-wing. Not only are they charmers who network with people as they are a 3-wing too, but actually a 3-wing 4 as well. And I look at the levels of health for a 4, which are naturally more negative compared to other types. Like if you look at the average psychological health for a 4, you would think that that were actually unhealthy for other types. That's why an average health 4 still looks like there's something really wrong with them. As you might know, 4 is commonly mistyped in the Enneagram community, depending on which theories you follow, because a lot of the time 4 can be mistyped for 9 and vice versa. But thinking that we live in America, at least many of us do, and America has a heavy 4-wing, I want to look at how a lot of Americans can be depressed. I'm trying to think about exactly what the statistics were, but off the top of my head, I know that suicide is the second leading cause of death for youth under 25. And I believe at least 10% of people suffer from depression. So just collectively, the way Americans perceive the world, in addition to the conditions we put ourselves in this culture, let's look at the average and unhealthy psychological levels of type 4, the individualist. I want to go beyond the higher part of the average psychological health for 4. So let's look at level 5. Level 5 for the type 4, the average level of psychological health. To stay in touch with feelings, they interiorize everything, taking everything personally. I think a lot of people who are more feelers rather than thinkers might be able to relate to this, because people who are more sensitive and empathetic, they tend to take things more personally. And that's just natural. 4s, or 3-wing 4s with a heavy 4-wing, become self-absorbed. That's kind of American. And introverted. We're all kind of in our own world, just worried about our own thing. And therefore moody and hypersensitive. So if we're taking things personally, we're going to have every little thing reach us from that more fragile self-esteem, thinking that, oh, they did this, and I interpret this event this way because there's something wrong with me. That 4-wing is shy and self-conscious, unable to be spontaneous or to get out of themselves. They stay withdrawn to protect their self-image and to buy time to sort out feelings. Okay, and then this is kind of the descent of the 4-wing. Lower on psychological health, gradually think that they are different from others. So there's that emphasis on individualism, and feel that they are exempt from living as everyone else does. So they don't need to do life the way other people do. They become, and there's different ways of looking at that, but I'll just continue. They become melancholy dreamers, disdainful, so there's resentment, decadent and sensual, living in a fantasy world. These aspects of life these traits in a person, they can lend themselves to creating beautiful, deep, rich works of art in literature, in even media. It's just when it's imbalanced, then if there's not an outlet for all these emotions, it can just be getting lost in emotions. Here we have self pity and envy of others. That envy, I can see that in the type 3 achiever that wants to be like other people who just have it better, who are not deficient like the way they see themselves, leads to self indulgence and to become increasingly impractical, unproductive, and precious. I think about how millennials are deemed as the snowflake generation because we don't want to work, a lot of us. I see myself in this. I mean, looking at the terms impractical, unproductive, I just think of a person who does not apply themselves toward a meaningful cause. It doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, need to be part of the money economy and being a cog in the machine, but doing something meaningful and that benefits other people, I mean, I think that's ideal. Moving on to the official unhealthy levels for type 4. When dreams fail, when there's failure, 4s become self inhibiting. They're going to just block themselves from interacting with others like they used to. They become angry at themselves. They're depressed and alienated from themselves and others. They're walled off, blocked, and emotionally paralyzed. Cannot function. Just need to be alone. They are ashamed of themselves. They're tired. And they can't go about their daily routine. They can't work. They can't socialize with people. They are just emotionally paralyzed. We go lower in the psychological health. Tormented by delusional self-contempt. So they begin to hate themselves. Self-reproaches, morbid thoughts. Everything is a source of torment. So when you're in this place, it's like, I've been here. It's like you're so fragile that you need to just stop all sensory input because everything could potentially hurt you. Every little stressor, even though intellectually you know that it's nothing personal that says anything bad about you, you're such in a broken state that you need to protect yourself and wall yourself up from people and hibernate for a while you just kind of protect yourself and just sort yourself out and let time pass. You can blame others for what has happened to you, for the trauma, and you drive anyone who tries to help you. To stay protected, other people might reach out and ask if you want to talk or what they can do to help, but just to stay safe, psychologically safe, you just stay completely by yourself and alone. And then finally, level 9, despairing, feeling like there's no hope, becomes self-destructive, abusing alcohol and drugs. So when other escapisms like TV or junk food or even sex, that doesn't do it for you, you got to go to the harder, more destructive stuff like alcohol and drugs to escape. And in the extreme, emotional breakdown or suicide is likely. You just want the pain to stop. It's like, not only is there no hope, but every day hurts so much. It's like overwhelming and you don't know when is this going to end. generally corresponds to avoidant, depressive, and narcissistic personality disorders. I can get avoidant, just staying away from people, depressive, feeling hopeless, feeling down, not enjoying anything, no motivation. Narcissistic, I mean, a person who feels like they failed. There's this thing that they built their entire sense of self around and it failed. And when it gets to this point, it's like, I am my work. And if my work failed, then I also died with my work. That's how I interpret how this could possibly be connected with narcissistic personality disorders. So again, these are the psychological levels, the unhealthy levels of the individualist type 4. And I think this is the heavy wing of the type 3 America. We achieve, we perform, but when we're not trying to impress other people and help other people, we introspect into ourselves, and it can be so introspective, and with any trauma, it just becomes potentially self-destructive. I hope that this awareness has helped you feel seen, if this pertains to you, or other people who might struggle with great negative emotion. As a final note, from what I read, I think it was, if a trauma happens in your life, adjustment disorder is what happens when you can no longer function after 3 months after a trauma. So depression is about 2 weeks after 2 weeks of not being able to function because of sadness and hopelessness. And then adjustment disorder is 3 months after a trauma where you still cannot function. I also read somewhere that give grief 18 months, to just hold on for those 18 months, and time will lessen the burden. Personally, I found that television was a relatively healthy distraction. May you take care of yourselves and others.